also measure 2.
So I'm just shortening the bodice block by 2 inches. Reason being that I don't want my corset to get to my hip, because if it gets to the hip, the boning will not allow us to sit down very well. The boning will be obstructing our sitting posture. So that's why I'm shortening the bodice block by 2 inches. You can shorten it more than that, maybe by 3, by 4, depending on where you want your corset to start from. So I'm just connecting the dart line to the new hip line. You know, we have a new hip line now, so I'm just connecting it to that line.
So it's getting here. So the next thing we are going to do now is to work on our underbust shaping. Now, to calculate underbust shaping, we already know it's your bust minus underbust. So for size 12, which is a 36 inches bust, so let's say the underbust is maybe 32. 36 minus 32. This will give us 4. So this 4 will still divide into 2. This will give us 2. So that way we are going to be sharing. So you can choose to share equally, or you can choose to still give this the lion's share. You can choose to do maybe 1.25 and then 0.75, whichever one. 0.6 and then 0.6. So that means 0.6, that will be 1.25. I will also measure 0.3, 0.3 and 0.3. So from here, I'll join this back to the dart. You can see that I'll also join this back to the dart, like this. So this is our underbust in this region. Okay, so from here, so I'll take it to the true bust line. And then from the true bust line, like this, I'm going to connect back to the underbust line. Like that, and I'll bring this back to my waist.
Please do not forget to subscribe to my channel, like and share this video for more. Thank you.
At the underarm, mark 0.5 to 1 inch higher. This is for tubes. When you're making tubes, you don't want your bust popping out from your UP area, that's your underarm. So you just raise it a little bit so that it can be covered.
So I will first determine where the sweater will end, how much is going to descend. So let's say I want it to descend between my chest line and my bust line. So let's just say in between here, this is where my neckline will end. For me, that's my choice. That doesn't mean that everybody must stay there, right? Okay, so from this point now, I'm going to be drawing my neckline and I'll be coming back here.
So I'm going to be explaining how we are going to do a sweetheart neck without closing our dart. So the paper has been taped to the table and cannot be removed for now. So, and we will have to do our neck without closing our dart. So I'll just show us how we can do that.
So from the end of this dart, I'm just going to measure how high I want the sweater to be. That's on this point. You know, this line always passes like this bust line. So how high the sweater would be at that point. So let's say at that point I want to do 11. That's 11 from the end of. I'll measure 11. On this side too, I'll just do like this and measure the same 11. That way I can be rest assured that when I close these two lines, they'll meet. Are we together? They'll meet. It means whatever I'll do here, I'll stop here and I'll also continue here. When I close this, they'll meet.
So I'm just trying to connect the sweetheart neck back to the underarm. I'm trying to look for a good point that will connect me from that part to the underarm. So after drawing this, I'm not really liking the shape. Don't forget that we raised our UP by 1 inch. So it's not making the sweetheart to curve very well. So I'm going to be doing this manually to make sure that my sweetheart shape is very, very obvious and not just almost straight to the armhole. Can you see that I'm just adjusting that? But I just want to mention that in corset, it's not always nice for your neckline to be high. When your neckline is so high, it will become ugly. So I'm still not satisfied with the neckline. I'm not yet satisfied. So I want to bring that down by 0.5 so that my sweetheart neck can curve in very, very well. I want a very good curve. So I reduce that and I'll just reconnect this. Although it might not connect to that 0.5, but I'll just blend it with my hand. I want a very visible sweetheart neck, so I'll just connect it that way. You can see that the sweetheart is now more pronounced than when it was at 1 inch. So I'll do the other side too.
So I can be rest assured that when I bring these two together, they will meet. They will meet to form the sweetheart.
So for every time you are cutting across your shoulder dart, you must refold and tighten the bust area. So for this example now, I'll measure the entire dart, which is 3.5. After measuring it, I got 3.5. So I'm going to take about 100% or 150% tightening. So it means that I'm going to be shaping as much as that. So if I'm shaping by 100%, that means I'm going to take another shaping of about 3.5, which will be that I'll divide the 3.5 into 2. It will give me 1.75. I'll mark to the left and to the right. It means I'm going to shape as much as the same 3.5 that the dart is measuring at that level. So on this side, I'm taking 1.75. On the other side, I'm also taking another 1.75. So in this case, we are doing 100% tightening. So here is 1.75. The other side is 1.75. 1.75 plus 1.75 is equal to 3.5. That means we have doubled the dart at that level. We have doubled it at that level. So I'm just going to draw a new and bigger dart, which is wider. So which means the total of that dart is now 7 cm. Don't forget the dart in the middle is 3.5, and then we took 1.75, 1.75 on the two sides, which will give us total of 7. So we've drawn the dart like that now. So here it will tighten your bust the more. It will allow your clothes or your outfit to be firm at the bust region. So that's the essence of that. So when you are doing a lower neckline, for instance, if your neckline is starting from around this armhole region like this and it's low, you have to do 200% because it's getting to the fullness of your bust. So you need about 150% or 200%, because if you do 100 for that level, it might not be enough. So you might need more tightness up to 150 or 200. So you need to do that calculation. You measure what your dart measures at the level where you are drawing the neckline, so that you can refold and tighten. But if your neck is high, like the one we are doing here, if it's as high as this or higher than this, you don't need to do 200% or 150%. That will only make your clothes too tight. 100% is still okay. Between 100, 120 and 150 is okay. That's why we did 100, because our neck is quite high. But when your neck is low, just like we said earlier, you can do more because of the tightness. This overbust tightening that we are doing 100%, talking about 150 to 100, this is only done to tubes. You don't do 200 or 100 or 150% when you're not making tubes. It's because we are making a tube corset. That is why it is important not to do anything less than 100. So you can do between 100 and 200 depending on the level of your neckline.
Move on. So after doing this now, of course, we already know that this is just to tighten your bust and everything. So what we're just going to do will be connecting this line into this panel, and we're going to be creating another line to panel this. So for instance now, in order to be able to panel this line, you can do something like this. Just create an artificial line for this so that you can cut this out, and also you can cut this out. Just connecting it to this line like this, and then bend it in like that. It's still the same thing. You are still going to cut through that line. Okay, so before I cut this out now, I'm just going to shape. You know how we always connect this our underbust from this dart? I'm just going to connect it into here like this. That's for this piece on this side. and I'm also just going to connect this piece here. So this is just me connecting this one to this also. So this one doesn't need any shaping, but for the sake of, let me just blend it in very well. This also blended. So this is the point where the new neckline is supposed to get to. So before I do that, I'll just take a straight line from this dart to increase it to that point. So for the lace up, don't forget that we increased the measurement here. That's the one for the back. So anything we are doing now, it should be starting on this line, even for the back too, so that they can mix. Let's first start from the way we calculated our front back to the waist now. Remember all the work we did for the waist, so we'll come back to that. Remember that our waist is 7. Remember how we got 7? Snatching into 28, 28 divided by 4, we got 7. So for any time you want to do a lace up back, what is a lace up back? It's just simply creating a space between your back and then using the lace to bring it in.
So I want to create a lace up back now, and to create a lace up back, I need to create space at the CB. So for this example, I'll be marking 3 inches.
Total, when I open this will be 6. Come to my hip line. I'll also measure 3. Now, just because I'm measuring 3 on my hip line doesn't mean that for every time you want to do lace up, it has to be the same here and the same here. I'm not saying that. Here can be wider and here can slope, which means you can reduce this measurement. So that's my straight line. So I'm going to measure my waist. I'm going to measure everything. So from CB to here is about 7.75. That's what we have from here to here. Are we together? Remember that our waist is supposed to be 7. I'm still going to treat this back as 7. I'm still going to treat it as 7. So it means that 7.7 minus 7. That will give us 0.75. So we have a dart to remove here with 0.75. Despite the fact that we did lace over, because we'll need that to panel. So I'm going to measure between here and here. That's what we have left. Don't forget that this is going. This is no longer part. So this is what we have left. So I'm going to measure from here to here. This is say 5.5. Just get the middle. The middle of this will give you like 2.75 here. So then our dart is 0.75, Abby. So I'll just do 0.3 and 0.3. 0.3 and 0.3. So this is 0.3 and 0.3. So together we have 0.75. So I'll take a straight line.
So we are just going to go ahead now and draw our dart line to the left and to the right. So I'm just going to draw it. I'm connecting my dart to get to my bust line and to my hip line, but it's not compulsory. So if you want to use your normal dart length, which is 12 cm or 15 cm down, you can use that too. So it's time to draw our back neckline. So I'm trying to just look for a very perfect angle that will connect me to the lace up back we just did. I just want the back to slope down a little bit from the side. So just like that, I'm just making that. That's the neckline that I'll be using for the back.
So that's our neckline. It means that all of these two will be going out.
In order to tighten the neckline, so that when you wear it, it will be firm on you, you can tighten that neckline area just like this.
So I'll just do 0.25 here and 0.25 here. So let me just label very quickly, and then so here you have your eyelet rings.
So it is time to shape the hem of our pattern. We want to give it a shape.
1.5 on this side.
So I can also dip this a little bit just for the sake of that design. Maybe by 0.75 or 0.5. I'll do that. And then I will connect. You can use the inside of your French cuff or the outer part, whichever one. So for the back, you can do the same thing, or you can, okay, sorry. So two ways for the back. You can either choose to do this, or some people will just shorten it completely. That's from here, they'll just shorten it completely. So the back will be on a straight line here. So if you want to do basque, ruler, simply ruler, just use your ruler. You can still go up the more here. You know that the curve we did here now is just a slight curve. If you want pronounced curve, you have to go in the more. So it means you are coming up the more. So here I can still do 4 inches below my waist. It's still okay. I measure, if I measure here, this is 4 inches here. This is 4 inches, so 4. So from this 4, for those that want straight line basque, you can just take this straight line like that, and also do the same thing at the back. Straight line. For those that want to do scallop, let's say you want to do scallop, and let's say this is the point you want to use, not here. Because if you are using here, your scallop, it means your scallop will be high at the side. You can even do the scallop on this normal straight hemline by just from here, go in, come out. Can you see that? So when you come out here, you must also continue like that. Maybe just end like that. So it is time to cut the pattern on fabric. I'm just putting the allowances all around it. I'm leaving 1 inch all around my pattern, not because 1 inch is what you need. I'm only using 1 inch because of the nature of the fabric I'm using. So the fabric I bought is not all that strong, or the fabric I'm using is not all that strong, and it's pulling out easily. So I'm just leaving 1 inch, should in case it pulls out so much, I will not be short of my allowance. I hope that is clear. That is why I am using 1 inch allowance all over, please, not because 1 inch is what I need. You can choose to use 0.5 inch, and you can choose to use 0.75. It all depends on the boning technique you want to use, or type of size of boning that you want to use. So here we are done putting all allowances round. Mind you, please, I want you to note the ends of the fabric. You can see that the ends have the same shape as the hem of the pattern. As you can see, it has the same shape, so please make sure that the shape aligns. All right, so just go ahead like that and then cut out the entire fabric. So this is the last piece of the CB. We're going to be cutting that now. We couldn't cut it together with the rest because the fabric was not wide enough to contain all the patterns. So this is our front. This is the front, and then we have the back. So this is all we have. So if you like, you can make notches to the points. That's the waist point, the bust points, just like you can see. If you like, you can make notches to it so that it can guide you, but it's not compulsory. I'm going to open up the CF because I don't want it to be on fold. This is going to have a seam in the CF, so I'm just going to go ahead and open that up. So we are going to go ahead and put our interfacing. So for this tutorial, we'll be using the stay. So we're going to put the stay. So we are going to go and iron it beneath each fabric. All the panels, all the entire fabric. So as you can see now, we've attached the stay to the fabric, and we've also cut the lining. Next thing we are going to do, we're just going to go ahead and join all the panels together. So we're going to be joining the fabric separately and the lining separately. So we'll be joining the front, the CF. That's what we're doing now. Joining the CF together now. We'll just join all the panels together, and we'll do the same thing to the lining. So remember that we left 1 inch seam allowance when we were cutting, and that's exactly why we are also sewing on 1 inch allowance, because that is what we provided. That was what we left. That was what we used as at the time we cut. So we're taking out the 1 inch allowance here. So this is the other piece to complete the front. So we are just adding it. That's the last piece towards the sides for the front. So we're just adding it. This is still the front. So this one that we're adding now is the last part of the front. So here is the CB, and we are about to join the CB together also. We are done with the CF and now joining back the seams for the, so the CB means the center back. So we are joining the back together. Okay, so now we'll be attaching the front and the back together. So we'll take the side seams and then we'll sew it. That's the first side seam, and then we'll also sew the second side seam to make this a complete piece. So we are done with the main fabric. Now it is time to put all the pieces of the lining together. So here's the lining, and we're going to do just the same thing we did to the fabric. We're going to be doing it to the lining, starting from the CF, which we are doing right now, and then we'll go ahead and join every other piece together. So we've ironed the seam allowances, and what we are doing now is creating the boning channels. So beside the seam allowance, we are now sewing 0.5 inch close to the sewing. This is just to create boning channels, as you can see. So beside the seam, we'll just measure 0.5 and sew on every side seam, so both to the left and to the right. This is to create a space, a channel for our boning to pass through. I hope that is understood. So just watch how this is done. Make sure that your sewing is straight and accurate and not wavy and all of that. Make sure it's straight, so that because the stitches will show at the right side. So you need this to be perfect, you need this to be accurate, you need this to be neat, so that you have a good finishing on the outside, because we are doing this directly on our main fabric. Although you can do this on the lining too if you want, but we chose to do this on the fabric. So notch areas where the waist, where there are shapings, like the waist, the underbust, notch those areas so that it can relax while you're sewing your 0.5 boning channel down. So notch those areas like the underbust, the waist, and every other part that is not very relaxed. So here we want to put boning at the extreme edge of the corset. That is so that when we place our eyelets, so that it can stay very well without folding in or bending in. So that's why we do that. So as you can see, I'm marking 0.5 from the CB. So I'll mark 0.5. I'm marking that out because that is the part where I'm going to be sewing in. Don't forget, it's our seam allowance to close the back. So that's 0.5. I'm marking it so I can close the back correctly. So after that seam allowance, I measured 1 inch. As you can see, I'm measuring 1 inch. So that 1 inch allowance I'm leaving, that 1 inch I'm marking right now, is the space for my eyelet ring. That 1 inch is the space for my eyelet ring. So here I'm going to take my boning, and I'm going from that line, from that 1 inch measurement, I'm going to take another line. That's where I'm going to be sewing my boning on. So as you can see, I'm measuring about 0.25 away from that line. So I'm going to start sewing my boning. Please make sure you start the boning after the allowance of the neck. And when you are stopping to stop before the allowance. Don't let your boning go into your allowance, both at the neck and at the hem. Make sure that it doesn't go into your allowance because it will not be able to bend. So we've sewn our first boning on that line. We're going to sew the other side. As you can see, this is a Neckline boning that we are using. It is sewable, and you are to sew at the sides of that boning. So here, this is the other side of the CB. We are doing the same thing we did to the first side. Mark 0.5. After that, measure 1 inch as we are doing now. The 1 inch is for the eyelet rings. After that, measure about 0.25 away from that line. That is the part you'll be sewing the boning on, as you can see. So then burn off the edge of your Neckline boning so that it doesn't become too sharp. Measure the allowance and don't make sure you don't sew on that allowance. So, and then sew on both sides. So after cutting your boning, it becomes too sharp, you need a fire or a lighter to just melt the edges. Don't do this too much. This is just to melt the edges down. So after this now, it is time to start inserting the boning into all the channels we have sewn before. So you measure each channel line, cut the boning, making sure that the boning is not long enough to enter into your sewing allowance. Make sure that you are measuring only the line that the boning needs to enter. Don't measure the sewing allowance, because you cannot sew that boning to your sewing allowance. It will not make your clothes to relax. So as you can see, I'm trying to measure the distance excluding the sewing allowance, so which means I did not measure part of the sewing allowance. Then burn all the edges and begin to insert one by one. Remember to burn off the edges so that it doesn't become sharp, and so that it doesn't start poking you when you wear it, or your clients, so that it won't poke them. So you begin to insert the bonings into each of the channels. As you can see, begin to do that, and you will do this for every single line that you have created. Now don't forget that there are actually different other boning techniques. We decided to use this particular technique, which is the inseam technique. It's the inseam technique, meaning that you are using your seam to form the boning channel. So as you can see, we are burning off all the edges. We've cut all the bonings down. They've been measured and cut out. So just burning it and putting them into all channel. We'll go ahead and do this for every single line until we are done. I also like to mention that if your Neckline boning is coiling up, because when they are sold, they are usually folded. So most times the folding, when you want to put the Neckline boning in your fabric, it still remains folded. So if you don't want it to be folded, you can iron it so that it can flatten. The boning can flatten like this before you start inserting it into your fabric, because without ironing it, it will just make your top to fold, to become coily too, just like the boning. So make sure you iron and the boning becomes flat before you insert. So we are almost done, just straightening out the bonings. Just trying to make sure that they are flat in all the channels and not shifted. So we have to flatten them down to be parallel with the fabric. So we are done inserting all the boning channels, just looking through everything now.